let's face it, Adam, we're in the Jubilee Year of Hope, and we're supposed to be practicing hope. We're supposed to be living hope. And quite frankly, Adam, a lot of people are starting to lose hope. So this is time, we get this precious time on radio to share with all of our listeners, the family, the Morning Joy family, of how to really hold on to hope, maintain hope, and spread hope to others.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, this is a Jubilee year, and that means almost always it's once every 25 years that this happens. So for many people, it's once in their kind of practical lifetime. Like they're adults and they can still travel, they're past their childhood. So typically it's a once in a lifetime thing, more or less. And that comes from the concept of a Jubilee comes from the book of Leviticus, chapter 25. And it was a special year of reconciliation, pilgrimage, and coming home. So when Pope Francis designated 2025 as the Pilgrims of Hope as the theme, that it is a Jubilee Year of Hope, he did it, and he said the theme was hope because it's a world that is suffering from wars. And of course we know those are, seem to be getting worse by the week. A world with lingering pandemic concerns, fears of other pandemics, still recovering from the economic harm that did. The climate crisis, which is on many people's minds, we're seeing all of that. It just feels like a time when, you would want to kind of throw your hands up and be like, I can't get a rest. I can't, where's the break? And so he themed it hope for the world in that situation. And the emphasis is, in terms of the imagery, would be about a pilgrimage of life, a pilgrimage of faith, a pilgrimage going back again to the book of Leviticus, where the word Jubilee comes from. Pilgrimage is a journey that you take for religious reasons. So we're on a pilgrimage of life. The ultimate religious reason is to get close to God in this life and then hopefully be with God afterwards. The pilgrimage of faith is our faith is not a static one-time decision. It's an ever-growing conversion closer to God. And, our faith is different when we're 15 versus when we're 30 versus when we're 60. But during pilgrimages, during long journeys, pilgrimages are long journeys almost by definition. They're not like, I went on a pilgrimage to the church down the street. That's not really a pilgrimage. A pilgrimage is generally a long journey. Well, you need hope because it isn't just down the street. It's not just a day or two. It's a lifetime. And so to keep yourself going and to keep your motivation up and to keep feeling like moving forward, you have to have that hope of, I'm going to get there. And if you don't hold on to that feeling of, I'm going to get there, this is worth it, there's a reason for this, you can lose that hope of, why am I doing all this? What's the end goal here? So when things are difficult, that's when it's particularly hard. You're trying to make this journey. You're trying to grow in all these ways. And the world seems to be hemming you in and threatening on all sides. And that's very distracting, right? So it's tough. We want to get closer to God. We want to trust in God's providence. But the world wants to distract us with all the crises and all the problems. And so part of it is we have to just kind of abandon ourselves to God, like do what you can and leave the rest to God and trust in his providence. Because honestly, we don't have any other choice. Like work hard, do what you can, do your part, and leave the rest to God, because we don't have control over the rest. So the pilgrimage of hope, it's a little bit complicated. It's not just a simple Pollyanna idea of, I'll just hope more. There's work involved. It's staying focused on God, putting one foot in front of the other, figuratively, and trusting God about the things we can't control. Mm-hmm. What do you think?
Yeah, I totally agree. Do you remember when we had Father Wade Menezes on the Spirit World, and he talked about heaven, and he kept saying that we are not eternity-minded enough? Mm-hmm. And when you practice being eternity-minded, it it will naturally result in a sense of hope. Because as you envision, and folks, you got to go big with heaven. Okay, this idea of gray robes floating around and it's boring prayers all day long, that is not heaven, guys. It's we can't even describe what heaven is like. You know, if you go to near-death experiences, or what the saints saw of a glimpse of heaven, or what we are told in Scripture about heaven, it is well beyond anything we can comprehend, which means that it is not gray robes floating around praying all day, because that's something we can comprehend. Mm-hmm. So it's got to be pretty extraordinary. So you have to go into the magnificent. You have to go into beyond all your wildest dreams. You have to go into that realm as best you can with the brain, the strength that you have to be able to envision the greatest, most amazing eternity of that you could ever even imagine, envision, think about. And stay there. Stay there as long as you can on a regular basis. Because I can tell you that when I do that, and I'm just speaking from experience now, when I do that, I have a great, hopeful day. Mm-hmm. When I don't do that, when I lose perspective, Adam, when I lose the vision, when I really get sucked into the world, it can be very depressing, and you can get depressed very quickly. So you stay one step above it. You stay one step above the world. You stay with your head looking up instead of looking down in the ground and in the world. And you can make it, and you can have hope, even in the midst of incredible pain, suffering, loss, despair, all sorts of things that can creep up. You can maintain hope through it all if you look up. And stay focused. Adam, you tell me that all the time. Stay focused. Mm-hmm. And is that what you mean?
Yeah. And, I use this example all the time, because it's an extreme example and it really happened, is Maximilian Kolbe, right? Mm-hmm. Here's a priest who voluntarily was put in a Nazi death camp in place of a man who cried for mercy because he had a family. And they were starving him to death. And did he despair of God and complain and just clam up and wait to die? No, he was singing hymns that were echoing through the hallways of the prison block that he was on. So it can happen. Now, he received grace to do that, but he received grace because he did his part, But yeah, you're right. That simple verse, be in the world, but not be of the world. To be Christian is to not be of the world. Mm-hmm. So, yes, we're living here. It's part of it. But we're not supposed to conform to the world.
Yeah.
I wanted to go back on the other side a little bit about, sure. You mentioned heaven and near-death experiences, because I've known a number of people that have had near-death experiences now. And I've watched a lot of testimonies of people, but there's some people that I have personally known, and so I'm very confident. And I wanted to talk a little bit about that, because that gave me a little bit of a glimpse of just how amazing it is to be with God, and it has nothing to do with the simplistic ideas of praying all the time.
Mm-hmm. Well, let's talk about that on the last segment of The Next Right Thing. Remember, our own The Quest, Father Cedric Pizzania, had 2 near-death experiences, Adam, and he talked about it on the shows here on Guadalupe Radio Network. But Father Cedric he's one who, if you've ever been around him, he's one that can definitely maintain and hold on to hope. It's incredible. And that's why he's so... pastoral in his approach with people. He knows how to relate to people. He knows how to walk with people, accompany people. That's just the beauty of his priesthood. But I do believe that a lot of that was shaped because he went through those 2 near-death experiences when he was a young man. Talk about people that you actually have known that have gone through near-death experiences, Adam, and you can maybe share with us what you learned, and that will help all of us.
Yeah. I mean, maybe. It has helped me. Okay. So, obviously I'm not going to name names, but one is, I know it sounds odd, but is actually a very famous rock and roll person from a band. They were in a number of bands in the 90s and pretty well known and all that. And I just happened to spend time with this person at a kind of an artist event. They had this experience that I'll kind of describe in general. And I've known two other people that have had a very similar experience. And then through secondhand, I've heard of a number of them. So when they had their near-death experiences, all these people, some of which are close friends, and I mentioned the person who was a musician, they start by seeing kind of a living interwoven light of different pale colors, like gold and blue and yellow and primarily white. And it almost looks like light that's interwoven like a basket, but moving and flowing. And there is a sense of, and by the way, those are very likely angels. And if you look at medieval paintings of angels, if you Google that and look at paintings of angels, particularly like icons of them and things like that, you will see in a lot of them, you'll see their wings will be striped with different colors. And I've suspected that is because the artists either had some experience or talked with people that had some experience, because you see this theme comes up a lot in art. So anyway, they see kind of a shimmering, moving, beautiful light. The biggest thing, though, Deb, is they describe an overwhelming sense of fulfillment, unconditional love, peace, and the feeling that they're home. The main thing is the unconditional love. And funnily, they don't think about the world at all when they're there. So they describe kind of being just enraptured immediately in this experience. They forget about the world. And when the thought of returning comes up, they always say, please no. Please, I don't want to go. And you'll see this also in the now hundreds of YouTube testimonies of people with near-death experiences. Almost all of them say, I didn't want to come back.
Can I stop you right there for a second?
Yeah.
This is very important what you just said. Okay, we all have experienced really great, magnificent times here on Earth.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, a beauty of a sunset, a sunrise, a new baby being born, a happy event like Christmas or something of that nature. So we've experienced some really cool things on this earth, and these people did not want to come back. So what does that tell you? It had to be way more extraordinary where they were. But go ahead.
Oh yeah. They weren't even thinking about the world until somehow it was brought to their attention that they were supposed to return. There was not even a second thought. And I'm not saying that like this life is somehow diminished. It's just that and they aren't even with God yet, I don't think. I think they're just kind of on the edge of heaven, maybe. They haven't entered their personal judgment. They're kind of, I don't know, who knows, in kind of a transitional state, maybe. But yeah, they don't want to come back. And when they've had like a feeling of that, they'll also tell me that if they just think about it, they instantly in their heart can feel a bit of that love and of that peace that they felt there. They just have to picture it, and it's right there. Even if it's been years and years and years, they just start talking about it, picture it, and bang, it's right there. It's as if the moment never ended for them. There's no worry, there's no concern, no nothing. And they all have told me that they basically, they're not at all in any negative sense, not at all suicidal, nothing negative, but they're looking forward to going home again permanently. Not looking forward to dying, looking forward to being with God in that feeling, which It was probably just a foretaste of things. It wasn't even the full experience. So they don't have a fear of death. They've all told me they have no fear of death. Now, of course, they're not suicidal. We know we are supposed to live as long as God wills us to live this life and do whatever it is he put us here to do. So we're obedient to that. But they all say, like, I basically, yes, on the human level, the body fears death, but in terms of their soul and their mind, they're just looking forward to being home again.
Wow. When you spoke with these people, did they talk about this amazing sense of sound and music and smells and taste and visual images? Because I've heard that it's just so beyond anything you could ever imagine of what it feels like, sounds like.
Yeah, so the main thing I've heard is visual, and the reference to like colors that aren't colors that we even are aware of here.
Right.
That's a common theme. I have heard the sound in terms of it's like a singing, a living singing sound, which could be the angelic hymn. I don't know. But yeah, different people, I guess they experience it kind of differently depending on how they're made up as a soul, as a mind, because the body's not there. So it's beautiful, Deb. And you know, one of the things to wrap up this idea of the reality of the afterlife in heaven is one of the criteria that, because science, by the way, has been studying this since at least the 60s, because as our medical methods of resuscitation have gotten better and better, more and more people are having these experiences. And by the way, of course, they've ruled out, you know, that this is the effect of the pain medication or the effect of the anesthesia, etc. The stuff that science and medicine is looking at are the things like, you know, the person's eyes are taped shut, their heart has been stopped for the surgery, there are no brain waves, and yet they describe visually everything that was going on in the room and was said, and their eyes are taped shut and their brain waves are off, and yet they'll report back to the surgeon later all the details about what was going on during the surgery. So there's things like that are more compelling than just I saw weird stuff. So believe me, science is, you know, is taking it fairly seriously. It's a beautiful, powerful thing. The idea of that hope for these people, that hope has been kind of partially confirmed.
Right.
It's a hope
Absolutely.
and it's a hope that we can tap into. You know, a lot of them have been told, I don't know if it's true, a lot of them were told during their near-death experience that they were supposed to go back and tell other people about what they experienced.
Only partially, I understand. Not all of whatever they saw or whatever they experienced. I've always heard this about near-death experiences, that not to fully tell the entire experience, but the message. Because it was their special gift that they received, and it was for them only. It was not for everybody to receive that, but to receive the understanding of the truth of the afterlife. And
the final thing, one of the criteria, and this is interesting, that the kind of the various studies on near-death experiences have put forward, is a permanent change in the person's life where they are less entangled in materialism and worldly concerns, and much more concerned about human relationships and love and spirituality.
Well, there you go. See, so that'll give you hope.
Thank you for listening to The Next Right Thing with angel specialist Debbie Georgianni and religious demonologist Adam Blai. Debbie and Adam are daily contributors to the live radio program Morning Joy, hosted by Keith Downey every weekday on the Guadalupe Radio Network. For more authentic Catholic content, go to grnonline.com/joy.